We have Kavan the Kid with us in the house, man, on the
Yeah,
515 Real to Real podcast.
Yeah, man. So he's here to talk about a great film that I saw that I shared with you. And I was like, man, we have to get him on the show, Echo Hunter.
Echo Hunter.
Yeah, man. So here we go.
We have in studio, we have Kavan Cardoza, aka Kavan the Kid. That's correct, right?
That's right. Yep.
Awesome. He's the co-founder of PhantomX, an all AI creative studio. And we're going to talk to him about his next project, which is...
Yes, man, Echo Hunter. You know, I was so excited when I saw this project, and I told Bruce right away, I said, man, we got to get him on the show to talk about this film, this project, any other projects that he's working on, and his company, PhantomX. So, man, Kavan, we're so glad that you're here with us today, man.
Yeah, welcome, man.
I appreciate it. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, bro.
Yeah, awesome, man. So, man, tell us a little bit about yourself. Like, how did you get started? And, you know, just kind of tell us, like, what your deal is, man.
Yeah, so the quick rundown of the backstory is I went to film school in Florida. Then after that, moved out to LA. Started making a bunch of rap videos with my broke rapper friends, and then 3 of them ended up getting signed to major labels. So then I went from, shooting, $500 videos on my DSLR to we actually got real budgets and we're shooting, studio level videos. I did that for about 7 or 8 years. Then I switched over and was a creative director at a couple of brands, but didn't like the brand side of things, just because there's not a lot of creativity. Even if you're a creative director, there's so many brand guidelines and rules that you really have to stick to. So then I switched back over to the music industry, was a creative director for a record label where I was helping develop artists and doing their music videos, their album covers and all that stuff. And then after that, it was around 2022 when I had discovered Midjourney. It was in its very, very first stage. And yeah, and started messing around with Midjourney. And the way as soon as I started messing around with it, I knew that this was going to go on to be something big, even though with the first initial gens, they were just essentially blobs.
Right.
But I could just tell it's going to get better. I always say about tech, it's not if, it's just when.
Man.
And then once the video side came out, which first was Runway Gen 2, I started making videos. But there was very little motion at that point. Characters are moving so slow. And I think it was around Luma Dream Machine was where you could actually have real motion. Like the characters, if you say walk, they're actually walking. It's not just this still moving, they're moving.
Right.
And so that's when I realized, I was like, okay, the doors have really opened up here. We can do a lot. And then it was in December of 2024, so just this past year, I put out a Batman short film that was based off of the Matt Reeves Batman universe. I just got done watching The Penguin. I thought it was dope, but Batman's not in it. So I was like, it'd be cool as if we told the story of what Batman was doing during the events of The Penguin. Put that out. It was up for 5 days. It went crazy viral, got picked up on all these publications like Forbes, Yahoo, MSN, Tech Radar.
Wow.
And then it was one day I wake up 5 days later and it's gone. And I'm like, what happened?
Brothers.
And I went and Warner Brothers pulled it and sent me a cease and desist. But through that, all of these other major studios started reaching out to me and wanting to do work. So that's when myself, my lifelong best friend, Mike J. Mitch, and then another longtime friend of mine, his name's Sav, the 3 of us decided to form PhantomX, which we launched at the beginning of this year. We followed that up with, we did a Star Wars film that was text to video using VO2. Forbes called it the best Star Wars film in years. I always make the joke that Star Wars hasn't put out a film in years, so we got it by technicality.
Star Wars.
And then, after that, I was like, okay, the tools are good enough that we don't have to keep doing stuff based off of existing IP. Let's start doing our own ideas. because we've always wanted to do our own ideas, but we didn't want to waste them with the tools not being good enough to where it wouldn't actually be, like a standalone project. It
Right.
would be outdated so fast. So that's where I had always had this idea for Echo Hunter, but it kind of works out with AI because two of the main characters wear masks for the majority of it, which makes the consistency elements in AI a little bit easier.
Right.
So implemented that, and then we wanted to go bigger than what we did with Star Wars, so that was where it was like, okay, let's get actual actors in this. And so I had reached out to Jonathan Younger at Arcana Labs, and he's also at Millennium Films, and so he was the one who connected me to Breckin and Taylor, and then that's how we were able to get those two guys. And then the rest of the cast was just through other friends and stuff like that. But everyone on that cast list is an actual SAG actor, so it was a full, and then we had to go through the whole process of getting it fully SAG approved, which we did. We were the first AI film to be SAG approved, and then it was 2 months of me genning and editing my life away. And then yeah, we put that out. Had crazy success. We got got all the write ups again. It's already won several awards.
Congratulations.
Uh, and then just a few days ago, I put out a trailer for a show that I'm going to be putting out next year called Untold, based off of a book series that I was writing. And it's been the most viral piece of anything I've put out. Like, I mean, I've seen it everywhere. It blew up. I mean, I think most of that came from Elon Musk commented and liked it and stuff. So
Wow.
like that really like shot it into like outer space. But yeah, so been doing that, and then currently I'm on production right now. I haven't actually even said this to the public, so I think this is the first time I've said it on a podcast or anything.
Okay.
I'm
Uh-oh.
all
Right here on the
right now.
515.
Yeah, right, exactly. And I'm doing the Echo Hunter prequel.
Oh,
So
nice.
to
Nice.
be a short film. Uh, this route we're going, like, I mean, they're actors, but they're more known as influencers, I think. But we've got an incredible cast. Uh, uh, King Batch is playing the
Yeah.
lead. Amanda Cerny is
Yeah.
playing the co-star. And then we still rounding out the rest of the cast, but they're the two leads of the film.
Man, that's
Wow,
gonna be
that is
great.
awesome, man. I mean, like,
Yeah,
Awesome.
so it's
yeah,
gonna be a lot of fun. Yeah, I can't wait. I'm literally, as we were right before I hopped on, I'm working on like the character models right now.
That's cool. That's real cool. But man, well, since we are talking about Echo Hunter, so where did the idea come from, and what themes were most important in telling this story?
Yeah, I mean, I kind of really liked the idea of that your memories have been taken from you, and essentially an echo hunter is someone that's like some former military or police or whatever. And what happens is the government puts this form in place that you can sign up for called the Echo Hunter program. And when you sign up for it, upon your death, your family is incredibly well compensated, but it gives the government the right to reanimate you, bring you back to life, and wipe all of your memories. And so that's why they wear the mask, because they can't see what they look like for the chance of it triggering their memories. So the times you see them take off their mask, it's only in their apartment, which has no reflective surfaces. So they won't ever be able to see like a reflection of their face. Um, and so that idea had come to me a long time ago. Like uh obviously you can see there's a lot of influences from like Blade Runner,
Yeah.
right.
RoboCop, Michael Bay's The Island, so like kind of all those things. But I just had this idea of what if um this character in the case of this one with Garrick's character, that once he gets hit with that EMP gun and it fries his memory chip, and now the memories just kind of start coming in, he's on this like quest to kind of find out, okay, like who am I really? Not realizing he's teamed up with the clone version of his daughter.
Yeah.
Right.
And the whole point is like to go in and swap her out for the original so they can start planning an overthrow of this whole Echo Hunter program. And also freeing the echoes, because I also like the, like, how the feeling it would be of if, you, me, anyone that went in there, and we were to go get an echo of ourselves. So we go into this operation, we pay this insane fee, and they clone us. And that clone is used essentially for body parts, organs, any of that stuff. And, like if I'm the original, I wake up and I'm like, cool, operation's good. All right, I'll see you later. If I end up needing a heart or something, I'll come back and we'll get it from my echo. But the echo wakes up with the exact same memories. So the echo has to wake up thinking like, cool, operation's done, I'm gonna head out of here. And they're like, actually, nah, you're an echo. So echoes get to live, very luxurious lives, but they have a lot of restrictions of they can't drink, they can't have sex, they can't do drugs. Like they have to maintain everything in their body because essentially their purpose is to serve their original. And when the little light goes off on their wrist, it means, hey, like it's time for you to return. And some echoes adhere to this because I kind of took that from, I think sometimes with people, we don't think about like the problems at hand until the problem is at hand. We're like,
Mm-hmm.
Right.
oh, it's down the road. I don't need to worry about it right now. And then some echoes right out the gate, they go on the run. They're like, nope, not doing this, not going to be a part of this. And then so that's where the echo hunters are deployed, and that's to go capture them. And then sometimes if they have to, they will use force by death. And so those little white coffin pods that follow them everywhere essentially preserve the bodies for an extended period of time in case they kill one of the echoes.
Wow.
That's cool.
And
Yeah.
you
So it's a
mentioned
whole thing.
it is. And you mentioned like the great cast that you work with, Breckin Meyer, who I've watched for many, many years. What
Yeah, classic.
right, exactly. So what was it like working with such a great cast?
Oh man, it was incredible. I mean, Breckin and I have out of this, developed a fast friendship. The guy's just one of the coolest guys I've ever got to hang out with. He's so kind, so nice, and uh getting to direct him, I mean, he's just like, tell me whatever. I have no ego. I don't care. Let's make sure we get it right.
And that's awesome.
So he's very open to taking all notes and everything. So it made it great for getting that performance. Especially because his performance is so vocal driven because we really don't see his face all the way until the very
Very
end of the
end.
film.
Mm-hmm.
So that was, incredibly helpful. Then Taylor John Smith, he was just in Alex Garland's Warfare film that just came out and was in
Right.
theaters a couple months ago. Was great working with him as well. Super incredibly nice guy. And then Danielle Busuti, if you play video games, she's the voice of Freya in the God of War series.
Right.
Also just, absolutely incredible. So like I was, for it being an AI film and to get them on board, it was really incredible. And I think it's pushed us the step further to seeing more of that happen, and to where I think we'll see more actors uh willing to work on these kind of projects and stuff, especially as the tools continue to advance and get better.
Okay, well, let me ask you this question. Now, some critics worry that AI will replace human creativity, but Echo Hunter seems to blend them together. So, how do you personally view AI's role in the future of storytelling?
Yeah, so with AI, I mean, I look at it as a tool. So it's, to make something like Echo Hunter, if I was to do this live action, I mean, I wouldn't have been able to afford it without getting, a major studio behind, because it would have cost millions of dollars. So um,
Right.
it opens the door, I think, for creatives. And the other thing I see it is, I think it'll be the democratization of filmmaking in Hollywood right now.
Hmm.
Like, there's no doubt the studios are getting ready and prepping for this so that they can also be making films like this. I think they're just waiting for the tools to get even better to where they're at the level of being on a streamer. But uh I think you're going to see people all across the world being able to tell their stories and not have any of these limitations or guardrails or anything like that. They're going to be able to tell their story. And I also think, when you see all of the influencers out today, so many of them, like when they do their sketches or their shorts or whatever, you can tell that they know how to act. So I also
Right.
think there's going to be a whole new birth of actors, like where it's not going to have to be you go through this Hollywood pipeline. I think it's just going to be like, hey, you start connecting with people. And I actually see it as this incredible creative collaboration. I mean, to me, there's no more of these restrictions and stuff, and we're going to get some like really unique stories and a lot of unique voices emerging. So I think no matter what, there will always be the need for, you know, like the human interaction element, um because there's just going to be ideas that people think of that I don't think the machine can come up with, at least, you know, not yet.
And you guys are really at the forefront of this movement, really. Having the first SAG after project out there. What does that mean to you? Just knowing that you guys are kind of at the forefront and you're already seeing kind of where things are heading.
Yeah, I mean, I think I was fortunate because I just started messing around with the stuff so early. With everything that we do at PhantomX, and my personal mission is just to always try and one up whatever was the last thing that I did. So like you just got to try and make it better, you know, improve it, and it's been a lot of fun. That's why next year, taking on the mammoth of doing a 10 episode show, where and the idea is like, if everything works out, you know, and we're able to secure the proper funding and all that, I want to make it 5 seasons, 10 episodes each, to where
Awesome.
like that's when I've mapped it out, that's how long it'll take to tell the whole story. And ideally like about 45-minute episodes.
Let me ask you this question. Um, and you kind of talked on it a little bit earlier, but um, the impact on studios in terms of AI and for versus indie filmmakers. Like I feel like for like indie filmmakers, this is like a wonderful opportunity to kind of jump up to the forefront of, you know, using AI. And I think studios will probably be trying to catch up, if I'm not mistaken. Like, what are your thoughts on that? Like AI for like I guess Hollywood versus film, like indie filmmakers, and how it can be useful.
I think for indie filmmakers, it's incredible. I mean, there's a lot of filmmakers who are still, you know, there's a lot of people who are still really anti AI.
Right.
So, but I like all my friends who are in the film industry, I'm always telling them, you know, start learning the tools, start learning now, because you're going to be able to do so much more, and do bigger stories. Um and avoid a lot of things. You know, so many things go into production when you're making an indie film and you have a limited budget. Uh and then when I look at it from the Hollywood perspective, uh, I definitely think there will be some studios that fall behind. I think there are other studios who are very much, just because they haven't put out anything or talked about it, I think they're very much building the infrastructure that they're going to hit the ground running pretty much, because the tools, in my opinion, aren't there yet to where you can truly make a show that is streamer worthy.
Right.
So I think where we could see the first UK use case of, on a major level, major studio, I think it'll be more as like VFX replacement. I mean, there's no doubt, like right now, AI is like the Wild West. I have
Right.
no doubt at some point some regulations are going to be coming into play, and all of that stuff, which hopefully they don't affect, you know, independent people too much, to where, you know, like somehow this gets, you know, sanctioned out to where it's like more of a Hollywood thing than
Right.
an independent thing. But because one thing I do see is, you know, I could see actors' rates having to go down, which they obviously won't be overly stoked about.
They
And
won't be
by go
happy about
down, I
that at
mean
all.
like instead of getting like $25 million for a movie, you know, maybe it's like five.
Right.
But you know, that's there's a lot of politics, there's a lot of money involved. So it, you know, it, all of those things come into a play of affecting this being fully implemented.
Right. And I mean, it was one of the topics that was at the forefront of the strike a few years back. You know, it was like the use of AI. So, you know, we kind of see where everything is headed, man. But, you know, it's like either you jump on or you get left behind.
Exactly. Yeah, no, it's you know, it is one of those things where it's not going anywhere. So
Yeah.
like, you know, when I see a lot of people who are against it, I understand that, but that's like the equivalent of putting your head in the sand, because it's not like all of a sudden we're going to wake up one day and AI just disappeared.
Yeah.
So it's
Right.
just going to keep going. It's the most invested in industry on the planet. Like this thing's a rocket ship. Like I would essentially say AI is like the second coming of the internet. Like, well,
Wow.
how the dot com boom was and everything that happened with the internet. I think it's essentially the same thing with AI.
Man, it's awesome. It'll be interesting to see where we head to, man, where we're going.
It's going to be a wild future. I always think about like, what is 30 years from now going to look like?
It's going to be insane.
We're going to be living an actual sci-fi movie.
Exactly.
Definitely.
Exactly. Well, Kavan, how can people follow you, man?
I'm Kavan the Kid on all social media platforms. So yeah, that's probably the easiest way. I mostly post on Instagram for like, minor updates, but whenever I drop a project, I drop it on primarily three spots, which is Instagram, X, and YouTube.
Awesome. Well, man, we appreciate you joining us today. Looking forward to your next few projects, man. And hey, always good to have you on, man.
Appreciate it, man. Thank you so much. Thank you both for having me. It was awesome.
Man. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Kavan the Kid, everyone.